Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Whiskey Congress is back in session, and we do have another whiskey to talk about. It's a gift from our friend Ben, who was on with us a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and we just actually communicated today, and he wants to get back on to talk markets with us. So we will make that happen. But this whiskey, well, Steve, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a Whistle Pig. It's a 13-year-old now. So a little bit of behind the curtain. So this is like a sample bottle.
Right.
And so I believe that this 13-year-old is
straight out of the barrel?
Well, yes, because it's 122.9 proof. So it's coming in hot. But I believe this might have been, I do believe the 13 years part of that Boss Hog line from Whistle Pig. And, we would probably need to confirm that with Ben. But I tell you what, at 120, nearly 123 proof, this is a whiskey that, you could tell that it's strong, but you wouldn't guess that it's that strong.
Smooth as fuck. When you told me, I was like, wow, that is not, it's the right amount of burn, flavor strong, it's a rye.
So what's weird about it, I don't get any burn at all. It's actually for a rye, it's a little bit drier than some of the others that we've had. And the back end finish is really smooth. It just kind of fades away really, really cleanly. And it's got your standard rye flavors, but it's so the end of it is just, it's almost it's interesting just the way it finishes on the back end of your tongue.
I'm going to give it a 93. I'm going to guess you're going to give it 94, 95 because your love of the
ABV. my love of that high proof, and the beauty of it is you with something like this you really only need one, maybe two, and then you could probably be good in a real good mood for the rest of the night. A couple nips out of a Glencairn and you're good to go. So thank you, Ben. We will definitely nurse this, but let's start the show.
Let's do that. All right. So the second wave of Democratic debates happened this week. I watched very little of it. I'm still in the mode of I feel like I'm watching The Bachelor and they should hand out roses at the end of episodes. I did see Joe Biden's closing statement and I thought he looked spent. I thought he looked terrible.
Well, did you pick up on the whole website screw up where he was just like, Joe, send a message to Joe 30330 or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He just seems a step behind. It's moving too fast for him. Whether it's age or the fact that Joe Biden has never been a good campaigner. He's run for president 3 times, and
at least 3.
Right.
He ran in 88.
Oh, that's right. So 3. This may be number 4. But he's done it multiple times and has never finished well, never been close. And I think that maybe Joe Biden just isn't a good campaigner. This time around, he's raising more money than he has in the past because he's got a strong Democratic backing, and then people see him as the front runner, and so I think that's why he's he'll be able to stay in this race as up until a candidate is chosen. He's not going to have to cash out because of money, I don't think. But right now he's just not showing well, and people are saying he did better in this round of debates. Okay, a little bit, but he really he didn't really stand out. He may have hurt himself a little bit because he was a step slow, but there was nothing that he really said where I was just like, oh, there, Joe's back. He's got it.
Right. Well, and it's so ridiculous to have 10 people on the stage. I mean, fundamentally, it is nuts to try to have a quote unquote debate with 10 people. It's a moderated debate, and then they kind of let it get away at times. Some of the clips I saw showed Tulsi Gabbard going pretty hard at Kamala Harris. I've heard a lot of people say that resonated. I know you had been a Kamala Harris supporter. And I'm not saying you're not anymore, but I think that...
Well, I mean, my stance with Kamala Harris was I felt that, looking at her resume, looking at her skill set, I thought that she could she might be able to, stand out and, be able to spar with Donald Trump and really put him in a situation where, the fact that she's a woman, the fact that she's a woman of color, the fact that she's, strong and smart and comes with what at the time, I thought were some good ideas. I thought she could. Now, I'm like, just the more I look at her policy, the more I really am kind of fading back on her. Her issues with on guns, her whole thing with
the truancy thing.
No, I mean, like, not her past record. I mean, her past record is what it is, which I don't have as much issue with, just because that's almost every attorney general, that's almost every prosecutor. There were very few attorney generals who weren't throwing people in jail for marijuana, who weren't, doing everything they could to get rid of the thugs, which means they were targeting the black community and throwing people in jail. That's like, if you're gonna be an attorney general in the 90s, 2000s, whatever, that's your record. Where she fell off was the fact that she was completely and woefully unprepared for Tulsi Gabbard or anyone to come in at her about those particular issues. Like, listen, how do you not know, and how does your team not have you prepared to defend your record as a prosecutor? Like, she looked so like, what? I mean, she looked like Joe Biden when she went after Joe Biden about the whole busing issue. And the fact that she wasn't prepared for that really made me take a step back and just say, you know what? I don't know if it's you or your team, but I don't know if you're ready for the big show. If you if you're not ready for those questions, knowing what your record, you're a freshman senator, right? Or second term.
I think first term.
So, like, what else do you think that they're really going to come at you about, right? I mean, I think that while there's some people who, she had maybe some sort of fling with Willie Brown back in the day, which no one cares, right? But that may be something that someone would try to bring up that was desperate, but really, her, like, you have to. If I'm again running her campaign, I'm saying, listen, this is where you're weak. So you have to be prepared for these types of questions regarding these specific things, right? Like, these are the things that people are going to look at and say, you need to say something about this, right? And the fact that she was just like, well, that's not true. I disagree. I firmly disagree. Like, I mean, it's just, those are the type of things that completely stun me. With these candidates, like, who the hell is running these teams? But it usually is a brother, a friend, a sister, whatever it is, someone who really knows nothing about managing a campaign. And so that's what you get.
Well, I mean, so Tulsi Gabbard went after pretty hard, then went on, what show did she go on? And basically said that Kamala Harris is just unqualified to be commander-in-chief. Now, you could make that statement about multiple other presidents, but she was basically saying she has no foreign policy experience. I think Tulsi got a bit of a bump here. I'll be curious to see what the numbers say, what the donors say.
Well, she definitely got a bump. I mean, she's like right on the verge of qualifying for September. I will give you, some credit. Like, she can't. No, what's funny is there's a narrative about Tulsi Gabbard that she's a Russian operative. Now, I sent you an article a couple weeks ago. Not so much as say like CCC look, but I thought it was interesting that she has some ties to Russia, and there's also her issues with Syria. She's people are saying she's an Assad apologist. I wouldn't say that, but I think she needs to come out with a better stance on that issue, or a more declarative, definitive stance on it. She does dance around it a little bit. In these sort of situations, you can't give answers like, because people are coming to are you an Assad apologist? And she's like, I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer. And you have to have a better answer than I'm not going to answer it, throwing a fun little, adjective in there before. So, Gabbard needs to clean that up. But this whole thing with her being a Russian object is something that's being thrown out there by, a lot of different angles, a lot of different people, whether it's coming from Biden or Harris or whomever, as a weak point, as a way to kind of attack her on a weak point. And where I say no, all she did was she looked at the candidates on the stage and said, who can I target that will give me traction, right? And then so she went, and she could have went after Joe Biden, but she aimed at Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris was coming in off of her performance from the last debates, and I think she saw that weak point with her record as an attorney general and as a prosecutor, and so she said, you know what, I'm going to go after the big dog right now. And she did a really good job with that. And so to counter, they're throwing out this idea that, oh, be careful, she's got ties to Russia and she's a puppet and blah, 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 which I don't believe at all. I don't buy. But she needs to, now she's got to do what Kamala Harris didn't do, which is now prepare herself for what the obvious attack on her is going to be in the debates that come in September.
Yeah, I agree. And she's been dealing with the whole "you're an Assad toady." I mean, I forget the name of the New York Times journalist who went on Rogan's podcast and called her an Assad toady. It's the same lady that's been on Bill Maher multiple times, and the name coming to my head is Abby Martin, and that's completely wrong. Completely wrong. But that's the only name I can get in my head. So yeah, she has to be prepared for that, and I think. She's going to go back to her service record and the fact that she's seen what this is all about. And her biggest thing is get us out of military conflicts that don't involve our national security. And I'm 100% on board with that. So we'll see where it goes. But I'm still borderline protesting the clown show that is the Democratic debates. I mean,
they really, I was hoping that the need for, the way the donor thing is set up, and you have to have so many
percentage points,
individual donors and polls and dollars and all that stuff would really weed some people out. But it hasn't yet.
It's too early.
It is. But
Hickenlooper was arguing that he was still in the race, and dude, you are not in the race.
Right. Please go away.
Well, people are pushing him to run for Senate in Colorado, and that makes sense. So, dude, take the step back.
Yeah,
do something you could actually win.
Andrew Yang is still there. Which, nice message, but it's just, you're not going to, but I'm a little bit of a, I don't know, I guess political elitist, right? Like if you're not, in the hunt, in the top five, I'm not giving you a shot at a BCS title, essentially, right? Like so I'm a power conference guy.
You're 11-0,
right? Like
guy,
you're going to be
Boise State,
right? You're going to be playing in not one of the New Year's Day bowls. Period.
Okay.
Sorry,
and we're very different in that regard, right?
Right, and I know everybody needs to change, but I mean,
that was very well articulated. So
I know, but I mean, now to be fair. Listen, if Gabbard can really jump back into this thing and take a big chunk of someone, whether she starts to absorb Julian Castro's people or whoever, and then come in with 4% or 5% of the now she's back in it, to a degree. And let's see how it all shakes out and see if she can get back into the top five. She made a power move, a power play to jump back in it. I thought she did a good job. And I mean, listen, there's no one that I'm rooting for, right? Like there's no one that really blows me away. I mean, the whole Medicare, healthcare for all thing, I don't necessarily agree with. On the one hand, we're saying that the government, we don't trust the government and they're bad at this and they're bad at that. And then we're going to turn around and say, but we're going to trust them with our healthcare. That's where I disagree,
right.
And it's not. I'm not throwing it out there to debate healthcare at the moment, but there's no any candidate that's throwing it out there to me. I immediately go to the eye roll, and so these candidates do need to figure out a way to distinguish themselves. And for me right now, I think Elizabeth Warren is probably the one who is your true front runner. the polls are still saying Biden, but I think reality is saying Elizabeth Warren is your front runner right now.
Or Bernie, which again, you can throw the age
I
thing
think,
there.
I think
I disagree with you totally on healthcare, so we won't debate it now.
Yeah,
just know that
that's fine.
On the record, we totally disagree.
Our government can totally pull it off. We pull
No,
off
it's
things
not.
seamlessly.
See, I think that's a flawed argument. I don't want to go to that.
How's our government doing with education?
That is a different question. And the issue isn't, I'm not saying I want a government agent in the fucking waiting room with you and following you to the doctor. Doctors will be providing it, but it's a financial thing. And how's the government doing with it? Well, with Medicaid, they're doing a pretty good job. And the VA does a good job with some things and a horrible job with others. I think if they were better managed and more visible, they would be forced to do a better job. But I will say that a for-profit owing its allegiance to the stockholders' insurance company is always going to choose dollars over people. Almost every other country in the world that is anything close to civilized has some form of health care that's government run. Some of them fuck it up all the time. I'm not saying Canada's good. I'm not saying England's good. But France is ranked number one in the world. And I know people from Denmark that I've talked about this at length because I used to have lunch with them when I worked for a Danish company. And they would say, like, we think you're idiots in America. Like, with us, when you need to go to the dentist, you book an appointment with the dentist. Yeah, our taxes are more, but that aspect of your life is taken care of for everyone. I know we're bigger than Denmark. We're also, we have more doctors in Denmark, and we have better incentives or better ability to produce more doctors than Denmark. So that, all right,
but the argument that but then the incentive to be a doctor really changes because it costs a lot of money to become a doctor, and are you still going to be able to pay the doctors the same thing that you're paying them now? And the answer is no.
Okay, fine. Subsidize medical school.
Okay.
Make it so the doctors don't graduate from medical school with $1 million in debt, and then
it's not quite $1 million, but,
okay, but
it's probably close to $500,000.
$250,000. Yeah.
No, it's probably close to $500,000. I mean,
I think that's an easy fix.
Maybe.
I mean,
I just again, so I'm not sure if that actually works. I know it seems like it should, but I don't necessarily believe that it does. Or eventually it can, but it's going to be 20 years of a shit show. And by the time it does start working, and it's just like I'll probly be dead. So it's just
and we know I'm fucking gone.
Right. So it's just like
what do you mean right? Hold on, I thought you'd back me up a little bit. Come on.
No. Not gonna make it. Negatory, Ghost Rider. But anyway, we got a little bit sidetracked there. Yep. But these candidates do need to figure out a way to distinguish themselves, and they have to figure out how to do that in a way that's going to present them as a viable person to, spar with Donald Trump. And listen, at this point in time, you have to look at this election. It's not about converting anyone in the Trump base. You're not going to get anyone to take off their MAGA hat and throw it in the fireplace. Not going to happen. So at this point,
unless you put a Nike swoosh on it.
Well, true. But it's not. That's not going to happen. So now what you have to do is you really have to think about how are you going to mobilize people who were sitting at home. Right, it becomes about a grassroots mobilization effort because you're not going to switch anyone. I think a lot of the people in the middle on the fence want nothing to do with anything that any of the Democrats are talking about. Not one. And so I think a lot of those people who say they're on the fence, who say their vote is up for grabs, it's not. They're going to vote for Trump. They will hold their nose no matter what he says, no matter what he does. He could walk into their house, slap the dad, fuck the mom, and take the kids' lunch money, and I guarantee you they're still voting for him because their excuse will be, yeah, he's a dick, and yeah, he's a racist asshole, but at least he's not a socialist, right?
True.
And I'm not saying
there are people who will say that.
Right, there are people who will say that, but there are people who genuinely believe that no matter what Trump says or does, it is better than anything that Bernie, they don't want to see the country going into the hands of Bernie Sanders and AOC and people like
Elizabeth
that. Warren. Elizabeth Warren, I think they can tolerate a little bit more, but I still think that, the idea of, because all of a sudden all these people are going to get an advantage that they didn't get. Well, you're going to pay off student loans why do I have to pay for their bad decisions? F that, right? Like, why aren't you paying off my credit card debt? F that. And
those people certainly exist.
And a lot of those people exist, right? And so you're you're gonna have an issue, pushing those people over to that side because the Democrats are all saying, all right, F it, let's just go far left. Let's go far left and let's go grab, as many people as we can. People of color, Antifa, white college kid, whatever. Like, let's grab them all.
No one's trying to grab the Antifa vote.
I get it. I'm just saying, look,
Sorry,
they're trying to
that term after my multiple discussions with people on that.
They're trying to mobilize as many people as they can. If they believe that they have to go further left to do it, to get people off their seats, and I don't necessarily disagree with that from a strategy standpoint, right? Like, do I agree with a lot of the stuff that they're spouting out? No. But if you want to win, then maybe you're not going to get the people in the middle. You need to get more people on the left. You have to get them to the polls, and so that's the way you do it. And I think that's the strategy moving forward.
So turnout is huge. I agree. Where I totally disagree with you is I think the people who are saying I'll plug my nose but vote for Trump might plug their nose and say I'm sitting this one out, and that's the best thing that can happen to the Democrats is people say, you know what, I'm not going to vote for. I'm not going to vote for Bernie. I'm not going to vote for whoever.
The only way that works is if the people in the middle plug their nose and sit it out, but you still mobilize more people on the left who didn't vote last time around.
Right.
Black, women, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have, pissed off Bernie supporters, whatever. You have to bring more people into the mix, right? And then get them to the ballot box.
Right. I agree with that.
And that's otherwise I think you lose again.
So we've now talked about the Democratic debates more than I watched them, and I again offer no apology for that because I consider this just to be a weird situation that the party needs to fix.
Listen. I mean, this is what you want, though, right? I mean, this is what allows. This is what allows us to know who Tulsi Gabbard is. This is what allows us to know who Andrew Yang is. This is what allows us to know really more about Julian Castro and all that other stuff. Pete Buttigieg,
I'm just bringing up a name that we wouldn't know.
I know he's falling off my. I like him less and less every time I hear him talk. Cory Booker, I think, is literally just doing this to be vice president, which I don't think that's a terrible role for him.
Didn't you go off on me when I said someone was doing that?
Well, what I said, you had said it about Kamala Harris, and I don't think Kamala Harris is not in this for second place. At all.
I don't remember. I believe that. I think I started naming people who would be good vice presidential candidates, and I think you went off on me for saying no one wants that. Cory Booker, I think, actually did have a good week in terms of.
He did have a good week, but the issue with Cory Booker is that I think the consensus with him is that he just is trying too hard, and he is constantly outraged about everything, and it's just like, bro, you got it, like, and he did have a good debate, right? Like he had a couple good snappy lines and things like that, but I don't think anyone's looking at him and saying, I want you in the White House, right? I mean, I think he played it wrong going back to 2 years ago, and but I think vice president, yeah, sure, and maybe he's not playing for that, but I don't think he's playing for that. He's not, but he probably should be.
Okay,
let me amend my statement. He's not, but he should be.
Would you care to revise your statement, sir? All right, so this is a weird week in politics when it comes to our president and Congress because
running his mouth.
Yeah, and tweeting, and Ben actually reached out to us, wanted to talk about Trump's tweets and the market dropping like 600 points in 30 minutes when he started talking about tariffs again and shit. And we'll try to get him in here soon and talk about things like that. But the Elijah Cummings thing is, I'm going to go far enough to say it's bizarre even by our modern times. I mean, he called Baltimore a rat-infested or an infested nightmare or whatever he said that no human would want to live in. And he again got called a racist. And I'm going to say this, and I know this is easy for a 48-year-old white guy to say, but that card can get overplayed to the point where you're the boy who cried wolf. I agree Trump is an elitist. I've been very clear. I think he's a fucking douchebag. But...
And he's shown plenty of signs of racism.
Totally agree. But it's so weird because when you try to like stick someone to that title, it's such a moving target, right?
Well, it is. I mean, because it's like, listen, that's the playbook now, right? There was a time where you could just be a flat out racist. You could call someone a nigger. You could throw someone in jail for being black. You could call them a boy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you could really abuse them.
And that time was not that long ago.
Not that long ago. Right? I mean, there are people who are in Congress and who are in the Senate. Right? Like, I look at a guy like a Mitch McConnell, who was probably a teenager during the Civil Rights Movement, and I doubt that his family was on the right side of the Civil Rights Movement.
I'm fairly comfortable with that
right?
statement, yeah.
But he's been a senator for how long now? You know, I mean, like, so...
Honestly, Steve, he might have been older than a teenager during the Civil Rights Movement.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and he's not, right? You got Elijah Cummings, who was, marched in the Civil Rights, you know, was, and Senator Lewis down in Georgia. I mean, like, we still have plenty of people who were alive during that time.
Right, who
are now...
saw German Shepherds and water cannons
right,
and shit.
Like, who were on opposite sides of that, and who are now in our government, and they run corporations. They are in local government, all over the place. So it wasn't that long ago, right? And so, but now things have shifted and things have changed. Like, you can't be that directly racist. So there are code words and dog whistles and subtleties to being a racist now, right? Like, there's like a code book, right? You can't say this, but you can say this, right? You can't say this, but when you do say this, it means this. And so that's why it becomes a moving target, because it's like, oh, no, that's not racist. I was just pointing out the obvious, right? Now, I will say this about Baltimore. I spent a lot of time there the last few years. I mean, literally, I was there every other week for 3-4 days out of the week for 2 years.
Right.
My job, what I was doing in Baltimore, was actually directly addressing what Donald Trump was talking about.
Meaning low income housing.
Well, yes, but like, so the Baltimore Housing Authority, they came under fire because the projects that they had in the different housing places that they had were just abominable. They were rat infested. There was like, these are things that I saw with my own eyes, firsthand account, walking into buildings that smelled awful. They smelled like stale cigarette smoke. They smelled like mold. It smelled as close to death without actually seeing a dead body as you could. People were sick, whether they were seniors or children. The place was, many of these places should have been condemned. There was water damage. I mean, there were roofs that were leaking into, people's apartments. You had situations where there were fires and nothing was done with the units. There were horror stories. I mean, they were, a lot of these places were just riddled with drugs and drug addicts and dealers, and police did very little. And this was 2014, 15, right. 16, right? Like, I mean,
Baltimore is legendarily
right. I mean, listen, the show The Wire, Baltimore, Homicide. Right? Like, these shows were written about, like, real life stories in the city of Baltimore.
Yes.
And so my job was to go in and work with the housing authority of the Baltimore Housing Authority, and use a government program through HUD called RAD, the Rental Assistance Demonstration. And we went through and we rehabbed, developers from all over the country came into Baltimore through this program, and invested millions of dollars. Right, I alone, my company alone, we converted, and it was right around $78 million, between $78 and $85 million, with probably close to 1,000 units in Baltimore's public housing. So we went in and we gutted these buildings, new everything, new electrical, new water lines. We ripped the walls out. New appliances, new kitchens, new bathrooms, floors, roofs, everything.
Okay.
Even exterior. The one place we put in a patio with a grill set and all this other stuff. Now, the reason why it's important to say is we weren't the only ones doing that. Right? There were at least 30 other developers that came in and all worked throughout Baltimore. There's plenty of work still to do, but that's what we went in to do, and that was under Obama. that program was instituted, and I'm really proud of the work that we did there. And I'm not doing that now. I'm actually doing the same thing here locally in Cleveland. But that's what we did. But my whole point is, Trump wasn't wrong when he was saying, listen, Baltimore is a mess. But the whole city that's not all of Baltimore, and that's not all of Elijah Cummings' district. Elijah Cummings' district also includes Columbia, Maryland, which is, it's this weird place where I've
been to Columbia.
It's a planned development, and every house looks the same, and all the yards are very nice and neat, and it's got every retail store, big retail store that all the chain restaurants are there, and it's this weird, perfect utopia where it seems like something weird is going to happen, whether it's an FBI practice ground, or there's something weird going on, I don't know, pick a movie where weird shit happens in a neighborhood, like the Stepford Wives or something like that.
Well, there's also, I once had to call into a business call, and I got stuck in traffic, and my phone wasn't, cell phone was not able to do whatever I needed. Anyway, I ended up making a phone call in the Target lobby in Columbia, Maryland. And so it was right after Hurricane Hugo, long story.
I've actually been to that Target. I had to buy underwear.
Okay.
I didn't pack underwear when I went, and
all right. So now I'm curious why you would never. I'm hoping it was an oversight.
It was an oversight. I packed everything else. I forgot to pack underwear.
That's gotta be a horrible moment when you realize there's no underwear in my suitcase.
Right. So I was working all day. I flew in the morning, worked all day. Get back to the hotel, wanted to shower, go get something to eat. Whatever, and I get out of the shower, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good, right?
Commando.
Right, now, mind you, it was winter, so
that actually helps.
No, it doesn't.
I think it does.
No, because
I'm sweating that. All right,
I'm free balling in the winter.
You are free balling in the winter, and true,
right? And I'm wearing sweatpants.
It's not a pair of gym shorts. All right. Figuring out how to protect Steve's junk in the winter in Baltimore is really not a good Columbia.
It wasn't great. It wasn't great. But anyway, I've been there.
The Elijah Cummings thing, though, so he has been very critical of Trump. Trump has been coming after him hard. Then Elijah Cummings' home gets robbed or burglarized. Mm-hmm. And Trump tweets something to the effect of, oh, that's too sad, so sad, or just, it was
like, oh,
smug.
Too bad.
Yeah, smug. Yeah. Which, what do you expect? I'm not even going to...
Yeah, Trump is Trump, right? I mean,
he's proven what he is.
It's like a high school cafeteria with him and Twitter and, Kellyanne Conway and all the bullshit that they put out. But what I will say about this is, Trump called out Elijah Cummings because Elijah Cummings went after him regarding impeachment and, Trump being a racist and his tweets and everything else. And Trump hates it when people come after him. So Trump goes back after Elijah Cummings. And listen, Elijah Cummings, I am no fan of Elijah Cummings.
Okay.
Because, the projects I just told you about, we took some places that were dilapidated dumps, and we turned them into places that people were proud to call home. And I personally reached out to Elijah Cummings to come to the grand opening of these places, and I think that it would have been a really good moment for him to stand there and say, look, this is what we're doing for the city of Baltimore. And he didn't even send a representative, nothing. I just got an email back that thanks for the invitation, but not coming.
So Elijah Cummings and the mayor of Baltimore both kind of shit on your work.
Right. Well, at least the mayor of Baltimore, they sent a representative.
Oh, they sent a representative.
But I had no issue. The mayor, she was whatever. Don't get me started on her.
I was going to say you've gone off on her.
She's also not in office anymore.
Then there's that.
She's also under investigation by the FBI. So, whatever.
It's a witch hunt.
Glad we don't have a photo op with her, essentially. But with Elijah Cummings, I was pretty disappointed in the fact that he wouldn't accept our offer to come out. So I'm really not a huge fan. Don't tell me that you're doing everything you can for your district, and then we do some really amazing things in your district, and then you brush it off and don't even give it the time of day. You seriously couldn't send someone from your office as a representative. So I that to me rubs me the wrong way. What's he doing for his district? And I think maybe a little too much emphasis is put on what these congressional members are actually doing for the districts based on just the way. He's not alone. Because I can look at Mitch McConnell the same way, right? And I mean, listen, Mitch McConnell is worth tens of millions of dollars, right? He makes $175 or $185,000 a year as a senator. And look at the state of Kentucky, other than Louisville and Lexington, right? I mean, and those are thriving because of the universities and because of fucking whiskey. Us.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, Kentucky.
Right. So, I mean, but that being said, although I'm no fan of Elijah Cummings, I don't think he's necessarily the villain. But what I will say, with Trump coming at him and saying, look, Baltimore's a mess. Is it a mess? Parts of it are really shitty, but that's every major city.
Right.
Every state, every congressional district has places like Baltimore. I don't care who the congressman is, who the senator are. I don't care if they're a Republican or a Democrat or independent. Like, you have places like this in your district. If you have a major city, you have a major city that has these problems, right? It's just across the board in the United States. And so I think it's important that it was highlighted. No, everybody do something about it, right? I mean, not Trump. All right, you're talking shit about it. You're the president of the United States. Put pressure on them to get something done, right? And
throw resources their way to help.
Right. Well, and his argument is resources have been thrown their way, and where have they done? Now, listen, Baltimore is one of the most corrupt cities in the fucking United States. I mean, they haven't had a mayor finish a term in 4 mayors. Right?
I didn't know that it was. Is that
they have? I mean, like their last 3 mayors have all been ran out because of some scandal. I mean, so corruption is an issue. Again, Trump is not wrong. Baltimore has its and you can sit there and say, oh well, I mean, Trump shouldn't have said that to Elijah Cummings. Like, look at your fucking district. Look at what's going on in the town. Is he wrong? Now, the way he said it, sure, it's shitty, but at the same time, he's not wrong. So someone at some point in time, like, you have to acknowledge, you have to do a little self-introspection and say, you know what, we do actually, Mr. President, you're right. We do have issues in our city, and
let's work together.
Let's work together and get some initiatives done and flip it around.
And that's not happening in today's political world. But that's not nearly the most important thing in Trump land today, because your girl is back in the conversation. So so we talked about this when it happened. When Stormy Daniels got arrested in Columbus, you and I both said this is political. We got a lot of pushback on that, saying we were out of our minds. We were, there was the idea that this would be a politically based thing and a pro-Trump thing was crazy. Well, now, A, we've seen emails that show it was that, and B, we've seen now that the officers involved are under investigation and possibly facing disciplinary action. Now, I know you hate when I talk about Stormy Daniels because that is probably your favorite topic we've ever talked about on the show.
No, that's not true.
It's not?
No, I mean, first of all, whiskey. Hello.
Okay, fine. But
Supreme Court. Hello.
Okay, all right.
Lifting heavy things.
Okay.
Hello.
Fourth.
Right. I mean,
she's not on the
listen,
podium. How many times have you DM'd Stormy Daniels? And did we not make a bet last week of what would happen if she called our show?
Man, I'm working on it.
I know you are.
Well, and then I thought I had an end with this whole thing, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I'm still working.
All right.
Listen, I think we called this.
Yeah.
Right. We call this. I mean, those police officers should be under investigation. It was clear as day what was going on there. Right there, you had a group of cops who were just like, "We love Trump. How dare she challenge Trump? Oh, you're in town. You're at a strip club. Oh, look, you just touched somebody. You're under arrest." Right? I mean, that's all it was. And then they tried to cover their own ass. They arrested 2 other women with her.
Right.
Which it was all bogus. It was all bullshit. It was just a vindictive, spiteful revenge sort of thing. And it was a message to Trump that, hey, we got your back. That's all that was.
I completely agree. And again, we got so much shit for that. I'm like, okay.
All right.
Say what you want.
Right. And now they're under investigation. Now, the police department they're not releasing details as to why the officers are under investigation for these particular arrests, but it's obvious why they're under investigation. So, I mean, and I think that's a good, good by those police, by that particular police department to step in and realize that a wrong was done. Because what it felt like, I mean, listen, that was almost a year ago, if not more, and it felt like they were going to get away with that. Now, mind you, remember when she was arrested, the charges were like the charges were dismissed. That they weren't even charges. She was let go, and it was all gone.
Right. She was arrested. She was
processed. She wasn't charged. Let go. Over. Right. And so there was enough to tell you like this was totally bogus from the get go. And I think, aside from yes, it's Stormy Daniels, porn star. I watch a lot of porn. Okay. But in terms of justice, in terms of
the DM stuff, so I was giving you shit for.
Yeah. But in terms of, what this means from a legal perspective and a justice perspective, I think it's actually a good thing.
I agree.
It's a shame that it happened in the first place. Like, let the girl live. Let her listen. She didn't do anything to you, right? Like, she didn't do anything specifically to you, and she did. I mean, like, listen, she got a shit deal out of this whole fucking thing.
Her lawyer ripped her off.
Right, her lawyer ripped her off. She
got divorced.
She gets divorced. She gets dragged through the mud by fucking Trump. She owes money. She's on this, she's doing this tour, book tour, all this other stuff, trying to raise money because ultimately at the end of the day, she's got to pay Trump like $300,000, which she would be able to do if Michael Avenatti hadn't stolen.
Isn't it $130,000? Well, that was what she was paid to shut up.
That's what she was paid $130,000.
You're right.
But she's got to pay Trump's fees. His legal fees,
right?
Because of all this stuff, right? Like, so she really got the shit into this stick, and that just added insult to injury. Okay,
so we can leave your fourth favorite subject or we can finish that up on that. You also sent me an article about actually back to Baltimore and crazy shit happening in Baltimore. So TSA stopped. Now you told me two.
Okay, so the article I sent you. TSA stopped someone from bringing in a rocket launcher, right? And I sent you the article.
You're not allowed to bring on a plane.
Right. So I sent it to you like, okay, guys, public service announcement. You can't bring rocket launchers to airports and you can't bring them on planes, period. Didn't think we needed to make that announcement, but clearly we do. What confirms the fact that we need to bring it up is that someone else in the same week tried to do the same airport.
I really want to know. So the one guy was coming back from military deployment.
Right, the one guy was deployed. He was, I believe, a Marine or something like that who was deployed. And he, for some reason, tried to bring back a rocket. There was no rocket.
Okay, good.
Or a grenade or whatever type of launcher that it was. There was, there was no projectile. But he just tried to bring back the device. And they're like, no, you can't do this. Now, he wasn't arrested or anything. I don't know what excuse he gave, like, I'm a Marine, I thought it'd be cool, I'm gonna put it in my basement. I'm not sure how everything is just hunky-dory. The first one was not that, though. It was a private citizen.
The second one was not that.
The second one was a Marine.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The first one was a private citizen who tried to bring one through. And it ultimately got cleared up as, I guess, I'm assuming that they're saying that they're just using them as, they want them as novelty items or things to put in their man caves or whatever. But, I mean, guys, you really...
Again, there was no projectile, so... Okay. That makes... But I used to always laugh when I would go through certain airports, and I'm trying to remember which one had, like...
Atlanta. It's Atlanta.
Okay.
Atlanta's got a wall.
Okay. With a chainsaw?
Oh.
I want to say it was Cincinnati, but I was in an airport. They had this big display case of what you cannot bring on a plane, and one of the things was a chainsaw. And I'm like... Well,
Atlanta's got multiple, like, different, depending on where you are in the airport, which is a small city, they've got multiple cases of things people have tried to bring in.
I fucking hate that airport, by the way.
Like, Atlanta literally has a small museum of African artifacts that people have tried to bring back that were illegal, and they're all ivory.
Okay,
right?
I say they're illegal because they're ivory. Yep.
Right, and they're all ivory, but there's one, and I can't remember where the terminal is in the Atlanta airport, but they've got it's literally a small museum of various artifacts, one that are beautiful, right? But I mean, it's just like everyone knows that you can't bring ivory back, right? And if you don't, another PSA from Whiskey Congress, you can't bring ivory back from Africa or anywhere
else. Yeah.
Right, like you can't. It's illegal.
It's banned.
So, there's a whole wall of it, and then there's another wall of just like various knives and blades that people have tried to bring back. Everything from small little pin knives to swords and machetes that people have tried to bring through TSA in their luggage. Right, it is an entire wall right? And the number of swords and machetes that people have tried to get through TSA really makes me uncomfortable.
Well, like I said, the display case I'm thinking of, I remember it had a chainsaw and like dynamite. And again, like I don't know why we need to express this, but you can't do that shit.
Right. You're trying to bring that shit in your carry-on.
But what's worse is 2 tried, 2 got caught. How many have succeeded?
God,
we don't know.
I don't know.
And TSA.
There's no way anyone. No, I don't think that anyone could have possibly succeeded of getting there's no TSA agent so oblivious that they're just sitting there.
Rocket launcher.
What's that? Maybe it's a cat, like a boot for an ankle.
At least it's not a bottle of water.
Right. All right. Good. Keep going. No, I find that hard to believe.
Let's hope not. When you sent me that, I was like, wow. So real quick, we talked a couple weeks ago about a transgender woman who competed in track at
Division III school.
Division II. It was Franklin Pierce University in New Hampshire.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. But anyway, she set a record, and there was some thoughts about what should we do, and my response was, let her compete. But there's got to be an asterisk. There's got to be something that says this person had an advantage over the people she was competing with because she was born a man. Mm-hmm. And just physically, and I hate when people argue this with me so much, generally speaking, men are physically stronger than women. Yes. Period. Let's not even argue that. Right. It's just the truth.
Are there exceptions to the rule?
Sure. Yes. There's guys who can't pick up 10 pounds, and there's strong women and, whatever. But in general, that is having more testosterone, having the different bone structure, especially when you're talking about power sports. Now, I know I'm riding Joe Rogan's coattails here when I say when it's a combat sport or a collision sport and you're dealing with potentially hurting somebody, totally different discussion. Full disclosure is necessary, and if people just want to say you can't, compete in this because you have an advantage where you could injure another human, I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. When it's track, or in the case of this, a woman broke the record in a powerlifting event.
It was Olympic weightlifting.
Olympic weightlifting, sorry.
I don't get offended. There's just a difference
between
powerlifting
there absolutely
and
is.
Olympic weightlifting.
It absolutely is, and I said it wrong. I forget what event it was. I want to say it was a clean jerk. Okay.
Well, it was Olympic weightlifting, so it was clean and jerk and a snatch.
Okay. So anyway, she set a record. What are your thoughts? My thought is what I just said. Asterisk, do your thing.
It's not like so. My thought is not popular in this realm. So they'll tell you there are people that will tell you, oh, there's studies that say a man with depressed testosterone taking estrogen has no advantage over women. But there are other studies that I believe that just based off of fucking science, that even taking estrogen with depressed testosterone, that men are still physically...
bone structure doesn't change.
Right. Still physically have more physical capabilities than women. So in these sort of sports, whether it's Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting or track and field, combat sports like you talked about. I mean, I have a serious issue with it, and what supports it is that the transgender women keep winning. Right? I mean, it's not because they're just so driven because of all their trials and tribulations. There's a reason why that these stories keep popping up. Right? I mean, But
all right, so let me ask 2 questions. Do you agree with my stance that there's a big difference when you're talking about a combat or collision sport versus a...
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And I think I've said that in the past.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to, give a chance to put that on the record again. And then another thought I had, which might be a bit weird, should they just have their own category?
Yes, I think that they should. And people get mad and say, well, you can't isolate them like that. And
are
it's
you
not fair. No, I mean, it's just like, listen, we have men, we have women, and you are, like, I get that we're, like, listen, if you're a man that has transitioned to a woman and you want me to call you a woman, that's fine, but you are a unique category. right? In terms of an athlete,
They're a different category, yeah.
Right, like so, this is the trans category. I mean,
let me throw something else out there though, because
but the problem is that that I don't know if there's enough trans people competing in any one sport where it makes sense for them to have their own category. So you have to figure out where they fit. Now, where I come out on this is, we don't have enough for their own specific category. And so if we're saying, listen, from a society standpoint, we're going to accept a man that's transitioned into a woman as a woman, then yeah, you got to let her compete as a woman, and the other women have to.
Let me throw another idea out there though, because you compete in powerlifting, and there are powerlifting meets that are tested for steroids and whatnot, and there are powerlifting meets that are not. And I don't know that we've ever had this specific conversation, but I know I've talked to you about a friend of mine that was a bodybuilder who said, I've competed in tested events. I've competed in non-tested events. And so if you want to make it an open where there's a category and then there's a quote-unquote, I won't say a tested category, but in this case, you must have been biologically born this way category, does that solve the problem?
Yeah. I think it does. And I brought that up in a powerlifting forum. I said, just make the open completely open. Right, you still have it divided by gender, male and female, but the open, listen, and there's a explicit explanation that says this is open, which means you have men that have transitioned into women who are competing in this category, and if you want to win it all, you got to beat them. Otherwise, you compete in the biological woman from the start category. And then, because listen, powerlifting and weightlifting too, in those particular sports, I know firsthand because I do it, right?
Yeah.
There's already a million different categories, right? Technically, I still compete in the open men's division, but I'll be 39 in September. So I could technically compete in the masters or it's pre-masters or some shit like submaster. There's an entire subcategory.
I have no idea
that I could compete in that I would probably completely dominate and break records in.
Is it because of your age?
Because of my age, right? So it's already divided by weight class, and then it's divided by age, and then there's also police and fire, and then there's military vet. There's all these other divisions, so you can go ahead and just
open is open, and
you have open as open, and then you can make biological. You can make biological divisions, and that probably solves your problem. Now, the LGBT community will get all sorts of pissed off because any sort of they've transitioned, they're just women, right? Okay, you can make that argument all you want, but I mean, a majority of the world doesn't see it that way. I'm sorry. I don't want anyone hurt. I say this all the time. I don't want anyone hurt. I don't want anyone put in a position of being uncomfortable or whatever. But
discriminated
against. But we still have to deal with reality.
Sure.
And so the reality is, in this particular instance, now we actually have legitimate science that listen. Maybe over time, maybe over a 10-year period, this biological male that is now a woman no longer has an advantage. But you can't tell me that they transitioned, a year ago, and they have everything's an even playing field.
No, I agree.
Right, and there's science that literally backs it up.
And I've never argued against that point.
And what's fucked up is that somehow they figured out a way to finagle a study that says, a man that's taking estrogen is no longer, but has a physical advantage over women. And I'm just that's not true. Here's one that says they still do. Right? And this one has a much broader, testing pool, whatever. I mean, it's weird.
I don't know if we talked about my scientific career, my PhD dropout at Ohio State or not on the show. You and I have talked about it a little bit, but I can tell you, if you want to design
Go
a study...
finish it, Jim.
Fuck no.
Do it.
Oh my God.
Do it for the show.
Shut the fuck up. There's no way for the show, right? The only way I would do it is if I had a chance to go back and hang out on Ohio State's campus and be who I am now.
That doesn't work out well for you.
For anyone.
For anyone. It does not.
But my point was going to be...
Jim didn't make it to 49, guys.
Oh yeah, because the clean living that this show promotes has been so good for me. But anyway... If you tell me I want a study to conclude this and I don't have scientific ethics, I can make that study for you.
Yeah.
Guarantee you. I can make a study that says, whiskey's good for you. Whiskey improves liver function and I'll find the right subjects to make it up.
It's like so what's funny is I have a cousin who I love dearly who's a vegan. And he, whenever I post anything related to grilling, smoking meat, all that sort of stuff, he goes all in on his whole vegan thing. And a while back, he was just like, vegan men have a higher testosterone thing than men who eat meat, proven by this study. And I'm like, oh, this motherfucker's got a study. All right, well, let me look into it, right? Like, I'm in power sports.
Sure.
And I'm not taking exogenous testosterone, so if there's a way for me to naturally raise my testosterone, let me get into it. So I read this study. And in the study, it concludes that the vegan men had more testosterone than the men who weren't vegan. Now, the part when you go down, it says that all the meat eaters, basically, were 10 years older than the vegans, right?
I can personally attest that 10 years affects your testosterone a lot.
Right, and they said that somehow they accounted for the 10-year age gap, but no, you didn't. Right? I mean, it's just like, if you fast forward where the vegans are now, like you can't do that. Like you have to wait and see where the vegans are 10 years from now to figure out. That's the only way to make that work, right?
Yeah. Or randomly sample your age group.
Or you have to know where the men who eat meat or who ate meat or whatever, where they were 10 years prior to be able to make the comparison.
Well, and again, I don't know that particular study.
Either way, if
you have no ethics, you can make
exactly.
A scientific
But
argument for anything.
but just think about what that. So he's saying, as a vegan, my testosterone rate is higher than yours. It's just like, all right, but I'm looking at you physically, like your muscle mass, like you're lean, but you're also 6'5", and you're not muscular, like you're very, very lean to the point where I'm concerned. And your strength sucks, right? Like we've talked about your strength. So this whole idea,
you're talking specifically about your cousin.
This is specifically to my cousin,
yep,
right?
Yep.
Not all vegans, but just my cousin. And like he says, oh well, I don't get enough sleep and rest and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, but you're saying that because you're a vegan that you have more testosterone than I do. We're only 4 years apart, right? I'm 4 years your senior, but I'll give you that you're not going to be as strong as me just because you are so tall and lanky. But at the same time, I'm not 100% sure that you could bench your body weight 5 times where, I can probably go my own body weight 15 to 20. So something's going on there. I'm not taking testosterone. I'm not saying it's because I eat meat, but I'm saying you being a vegan doesn't give you an advantage.
I'm going to bring up the movie Thank You for Smoking just to do this one more time. Have you ever seen that movie? Mm-mm. Love that movie, but anyway, it's
Aaron
Eckhart.
Aaron Eckhart from Batman,
right?
Yes,
and he talks about how
I have seen that.
I love that movie, and there's a scene early on where he talks about how they hired a German doctor. He said, "Don't ask where he found him," to disprove that tobacco is bad for you, and he eventually says, "This guy could disprove gravity. Science, if science is not ethical, it can do a lot of things that are not good." All right, we're right at about an hour, and I want to reverse something we talked about last week. I'm feeling strong here.
Ooh.
Meaning the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, not because you're a vegan and you're stronger than me?
I'm a vegan.
You just ate a steak that looked really good.
The steak that you saw me shoving in my face.
There's still a little left.
There is.
I might get a little.
You're welcome to it. It wasn't great. It was pretty good.
Never mind.
No, it's actually pretty good.
No, I'm good.
All right, fine. All right, so last week we talked about the Bills and the Steelers, just a little football talk. I've had a bit of time this week to do some, listening to Bills training camp talk and all these other things, and listen to some YouTube videos about who's going to be the surprise team this year and make a playoff run. And I'm feeling real good about Buffalo right now. Now, full disclosure, I typically do this time of year, but I'm hearing stuff about Cole Beasley and John Brown, and our running back group is really strong now. And I am willing to put a bet out there with you, my friend.
They're going to say, what?
The Buffalo Bills and Pittsburgh Steelers play each other this year. Now, I'm not going to bet on that game, but I want to bet on the season.
Okay.
And that game is a tiebreaker. So, if the Bills finish with a better record than the Steelers, I win. If the Steelers finish with a better record than the Bills, you win. If they tie, that game is the tiebreaker. And I'm willing to put a bottle of whiskey on it. I'll let you set a cap on the price. If you want to take the bet, which we already talked about, so I don't
Okay, so let me get this straight. So,
if the Bills have a better record than the Steelers, I win.
Okay.
If not, if the Bills have the Steelers have a better record than the Bills, you win. In the case of a tiebreak, or in case they tie, let's say they both finish 10-6, and then the team that won their head-to-head matchup wins the bet. Are you writing this down for posterity or trying to
well, no. I have to write it down just so we have it documented.
Well, we've got this recording we're going to put out there.
I know, but this notebook may be easier than going back through the recordings and figuring out which episode it was. But whatever.
All right.
So yeah, I'll take the bet. I'll take the bet. Now listen, you got to understand. I am taking bets from all angles. I got Browns fans coming at me.
I know,
right?
And I'm not trying to be. Well,
no. You're being that guy, which is fine. Listen, I love it. I love it when your underlings have swagger all of a sudden, right? Like I love it. Listen, no problem. I'll take it. You're saying your record's going to be better than mine, and if the records are tied, the actual game, the head-to-head game itself, determines the winner.
Yes.
Okay. I'll take the bet. What does the winner receive?
We're going to a bottle of whiskey.
Price.
All right. What's that?
Price range?
I'm letting you decide the price range. You want to put it at $50, $70, $80? And one thing we need to clarify, because we have had this problem in the past, is it a bottle of whiskey to be consumed on the show but owned by the winner, or is it a personal bottle of whiskey to be used?
It's owned by the winner.
Oh,
it should be owned by the winner.
Owned by the winner. So
right,
okay.
like I
deliver it to your house. Okay.
Right. We'll drink it on the show.
Or you deliver it to my house.
As long as it's something that because if you,
I'm not going to buy a bottle of Lusty Claw for you. Oh, $50. Here's your Lusty Claw, bitch.
God, you would get my size 13 to your face, and I'm not joking.
I don't know if you're flexible enough to do that, but I'm sure we'd find out.
Do you want to find out?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
I don't want to have to drink Lusty Claw either. By the way, just because I didn't say it was. Yeah, you can't do that shit either. Lusty Claw is not a legitimate bet payoff for either one.
No, I first of all, thank God we can't get it here.
I don't know that.
I do.
Okay.
What have you seen in the store?
In New Jersey is the only place I've ever seen.
Okay, that bottle. First of all, that bottle stands out so much you would know.
True.
It's not like that's not something you. I mean, it's a giant. It's a head.
It's an awesome bottle.
It's a tremendous bottle. I mean,
with garbage inside it.
Why? Based off the story I told you last week, right?
That's why I fell for it. Yep.
Anyway, so listen, I absolutely take the bet.
Okay.
Winner takes the bottle home. Now, if it's a unique bottle that we haven't had, absolutely the winner puts it on the show.
Okay.
But then takes it home.
Deal.
That's how the bets work.
Okay.
You do not get to bountifully enjoy my spoils.
You've that issue is now clear. What's the price cap?
Price cap. You know what? This is bold enough where I'm gonna say a hundo.
I'll do a hundo.
$100. Okay.
Oh, all right. How about this? The winner and loser go shopping together, and the winner chooses the bottle that the loser has to purchase.
Okay.
That makes it interesting, right? Because
still $100.
Still $100 cap.
Still $100
right,
cap.
Still $100 cap. Just that way, it's not just okay. I went out there and I chose, the cap was $100. I chose Ardbeg at 55.
Right.
No, we're going to this together. So
cap's 100. Cap is 100. Minimum 75.
Fine.
How about that?
But loser, we go together.
You know what? Actually, I'll make it minimum 85. Minimum 85.
All right.
Because that's a huge. I mean, $25. That's a relatively now
sure.
185. That's a tight, narrow window.
All right. Well, but again, winner picks out.
I'm just
loser
playing with your money right now.
You think so? The year of Josh Allen.
You've got Josh Allen. I've got Ben Roethlisberger.
I understand.
You're a coach. Who the fuck knows his name? I've got Mike Tomlin.
I'll take Sean McDermott over Mike Tomlin any day of the week. I am in love with Sean McDermott.
You crazy?
Are
you for real?
I'm dead serious.
You would take Sean
McDermott? Yes.
Okay.
I think Sean McDermott's an up and comer. And
your credibility, buddy.
I'll tell you what, I've been watching Sean McDermott every day he's been a Bills coach. I am thrilled with this guy. I'm not saying
fantastic.
Okay. Hey, he took a team to the playoffs in his first year. He took a team that hadn't been in the playoffs in 19 years to the playoffs.
Okay.
Second year, the team was rebuilding. We knew it.
Mine's been coaching for 12 years and only missed the playoffs 3 times.
Is it only 12 years? I'll bet it's longer than that. Look, I'm not saying Mike Tomlin's a bad coach. I think Mike Tomlin's a good coach. I'm saying I am flat out in love with Sean McDermott.
Maybe it's longer than that.
It isn't longer than that. It's got to be. He took over for fucking Cowher, right?
He did take over for Cowher.
Cowher retired like
5,
14
or 6.
All right.
It's somewhere between 14 and 15 years. Either way,
I think
I've got my coach who's been to 2 Super Bowls, won one.
I understood. My moment coach was his third
only
year.
missed the playoffs 3 times.
All right.
Never has gone less than 8-8.
I'm not saying anything bad about Mike Tomlin. I'm saying
I'm that high
looks
on real good in a pair of aviator shades,
and that's very important.
And his beard stays tight.
And how many times has Sean McDermott stepped on a field to try to influence a touchdown return? Zero.
Hilarious.
It was kind of hilarious.
That was one of the funniest things I've seen in the NFL.
Did he get suspended for that?
He got in trouble. I think he got fined.
I think he got fined.
All
right, let me be clear. What he did was completely inappropriate, completely wrong, and I actually respect him for. If I would do the same fucking thing. Go ahead.
That's the Mike Tomlin. I'm from the hood in fucking Virginia. Fuck the Ravens. You stick my foot out.
It was completely wrong. He should have been suspended for that, but. I
can't remember. He wasn't suspended. I know he was fined.
It's funny, and B, I know being as competitive as I am, I'd have done the same damn thing.
First of all, you would have just tackled him. You just would have tackled him.
I wouldn't know. I would have faked a fall and tried to trip him.
Because I think it was.
Oh, I dropped my clipboard. And sorry, I fell over top of me.
I feel like that was. I'm going to say Jacoby
Jones,
something like that. Yeah, who was running? It was like a punt return back. Yep. And yes.
Yes, okay.
I remember that.
I'm sure you do. It was great moments in sports. All right, brother, you want to wrap this up and maybe go have a cigar?
Oh, mon ami.
Let's do that. We are at Whiskey Congress on Instagram and Twitter. Jim at whiskeycongress.com to email me. Steve at whiskeycongress.com to email him. Love to hear what you have to say. Hope you enjoyed this. And as always, things get a little bit funny as the whiskey gets flowing. We are out.